Okay, so picture this. A massive global competition where the world's brightest minds are all racing to decode the very building blocks of life. Now, what if, right in the middle of it all, the rules completely changed, and the main challenge became, well, almost impossible? That's exactly the story we're diving into today. So, to really get this, you gotta know about a competition called CASP. That stands for the Critical Assessment of Structure Prediction. Seriously, just think of it as the Olympics for computational biologists. It's this super high-stakes event that happens every 2 years, where the best of the best go head-to-head, trying to predict the shape of life's tiniest, most complex machines. And hey, this is no flash-in-the-pan thing. CASP's been around since 1994. For decades, it's been the ultimate proving ground, you know? It's where new ideas get put to the test and where the future of biology really gets hammered out. A lot of the big breakthroughs we've seen, they were driven by this competition.
Okay, but then we get to 2022, the 15th CASP event, and the organizers, they just threw a massive curveball. They completely shifted the focus. They made the main challenge way, way harder. Suddenly, the game was totally different. So what do? How did the world's best scientists handle this huge, sudden change? See, for years, the main event was all about predicting something called the tertiary structure. Basically, the big question was, how does one single long chain of amino acids fold itself into a really specific, really complex 3D shape? And don't get me wrong, that's a hard problem. But it's a problem the community was getting really, really good at solving. But at CASP15, they blew that up. They massively cranked up the focus on this, the quaternary structure. And this is a whole other ballgame. We're not talking about just one folded chain anymore. Nope, the new challenge is figuring out how multiple, totally separate protein chains all come together and assemble. A perfect example is hemoglobin. You know, the protein that carries oxygen in your blood. It's not one piece. It's 4 separate chains that have to click together perfectly to do their job. We're talking about building complex machinery now. And this really shows you just how huge of a leap this was. The problem went from how does this one thing fold to how do all these different things assemble? It's literally the difference between folding a single, intricate piece of origami and trying to build a car engine from dozens of different, precisely engineered parts. This was the new frontier, for sure. So this brings us to a really interesting problem. One you've probably dealt with yourself, just on a different scale. Imagine you're trying to buy a new phone, right? You've got thousands of models to choose from. How in the world do you know which one is actually the best? That's basically the problem these scientists were up against. It's not enough to just make thousands of predictions of these protein assemblies. You have to figure out which one is the right one. And that's called model quality assessment. At CASP15, this became absolutely critical.
And this is where our hero enters the story. A specialized server called ModFOLDdock, coming from the McGuffin group at the University of Reading. They had built this tool specifically to take on this exact problem, to tackle this new, super difficult quality assessment challenge head-on.
Now here's what's so cool about their approach. They didn't just build one tool. They knew this problem was way too complex for a one-size-fits-all solution. So instead, they came in with a 3-pronged attack. They developed 3 specialized versions of their server, each one fine-tuned for a very specific job.
Okay, first up, you've got the standard ModFOLDdock. Let's call this one the Precision Engineer. Its whole purpose was to give a score that really meant something. You know, a score that lined up directly with the model's actual quality. So if one model gets a score of 0.8, it should be like twice as good as a model that scores 0.4. Simple as that. Next, we have ModFOLDdock R. The R stands for Ranker. And this one was a pure competitor. It didn't care about scoring everything perfectly or giving out participation trophies. No way. Its only job was to sift through a huge pile of predictions and pick the single best one. It was all about finding the winner, the champion of the bunch.
And last but not least, there's ModFOLDdock. Let's call this one the Independent Scout. This one worked completely differently. Instead of comparing all the models to each other like a popularity contest, it judged each model on its own against a reference set. It's a quasi-single method, which means it looked at each prediction individually to see how good it was on its own merits.
So there you have it. The team went into the Protein Olympics with not 1 but 3 specialized athletes. The big question is, did it pay off? Did this whole 3-pronged strategy actually work? Well, let's head over to the scoreboard and find out. And wow, the results are in. Check this out. In the big category, global fold accuracy, our precision engineer, ModFOLDdock, lands right on the podium with a third-place finish. And its sibling, the Ranker, is right behind it in fourth. I mean, that is just an incredible performance against a field of the absolute best in the world. So, the bottom line here? Their strategy worked. A top 3 finish in one of the most critical categories in the whole competition. Just a world-class performance, plain and simple.
But wait, it gets even better. Because when you look at what might be the most important part, judging the interface, the exact spots where the different protein parts actually touch and connect, well, the ModFOLDdock family didn't just compete, they dominated. They swept second, third, and fourth place. It was a total takeover.
I mean, that's not luck. That's proof that their specialized strategy was brilliant. When it came to the most important piece of the puzzle, their tools were just on another level, a class of their own.
All right, let's get just a little bit technical for a second, but I promise it's worth it. So, to measure how well they did, the scientists used something called a Pearson correlation coefficient. It sounds fancy, but it just asks a really simple question. When our server gives a model a high score, is the model actually any good? A perfect score is 1, which means you're right every time. A 0 means you're just randomly guessing.
So, what did they get? Across their different versions, they hit a correlation of over 0.73. And let me tell you, in this field, a correlation that high is a huge deal. It's the hard data, the statistical proof that ModFOLDdock wasn't just getting lucky. It was a genuinely reliable tool, a trustworthy guide for finding the real shapes of these incredibly complex biological machines.
Okay, so they did amazing in a super tough competition. That's awesome. But let's zoom out. What's the big picture here? Why does any of this matter? Why is it so important to be able to judge these protein models accurately?
Well, there are a few huge takeaways. First, CASP15 basically announced to the world that the new frontier is all about these big, complex assemblies. Second, this whole story proves that being able to judge a model is just as important as being able to make one. And third, the success of ModFOLDdock shows that these specialized, multi-tool approaches are the way to go. But here's the real kicker, the so what of it all. Think about a disease that's caused by one of these protein machines not working right. If we can accurately model how that machine is supposed to look, we can start designing drugs that act like a tiny molecular wrench to go in and fix it. That's the future this work is helping to build.
But, of course, in science, the work is never really done. Even with all this success, the authors themselves are the first to say that the journey is far from over. As they put it, there are still some really important challenges to solve. So this win at CASP15, it wasn't the finish line. It was a huge, crucial step forward on a much longer road.
And really, that leaves us with the most exciting question of all, doesn't it? We are right on the edge of being able to see and understand the molecular machines of life with a clarity that was pure science fiction just a few years ago. So the question really isn't, can we do this anymore? The question now is, what are we going to build with this incredible new knowledge?